So on today's video, we're talking about communication because I can guarantee that whatever area in your life you perceive you struggle with, communication or lack thereof is at its core. And by communication, I mean your ability to clearly, freely, and openly express yourself and also listen to other people. So whether you struggle with money and finances, or whether it's relationships, whether it's romantic or platonic, or whether it's your career and your professional advancement, your ability to communicate is absolutely essential. And communication is all about people. It's all about our relationship to other people. And from my perspective, at least, when we're talking about our relationship to other people, what we're really talking about is our relationship with ourselves. And so when we have communication struggles or challenges, it's really we're bumping up against our own internal conflict, and it's being projected out onto the world, onto situations, and onto other people. And that's why, for me, certainly the way I coach voice, it's beyond just getting you through a presentation, because actually you take your voice everywhere you go, and how you communicate with your partner, with your boss, with the bank manager, whoever it is revealing so much about you and your own internal conflicts and your own personal struggles. And so as you become more conscious of these and integrate them into your life, then you are truly free. So on today's video, I want to talk about these three key areas that I think we all struggle with at some stage in our life, and maybe all three at some stages in our life. So that's money, relationships, and career, and how our struggles with communication are really limiting us and impacting these areas in our life. But before I get going, my name is Anuska Taylor. I'm an experienced voice coach, and I'm a Jungian depth coach using the profound work of Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung. And my whole philosophy around the voice is your voice is an outer expression of your inner world, what's going on within, consciously and mostly unconsciously. And so when you just try and work on the voice on the surface, you are going to struggle to create lasting change. You're going to feel like you hit against a wall, you reach a plateau, or it's going to just feel like it's taking forever. So we have to do the inner work combined with the physical voice exercises and training. And that is when you are truly free in all areas of your life, not just that presentation or that meeting next week, but in terms of family relationships, romantic relationships, money, success, all the things that we all want in our lives. So if you're interested in learning more about my profound and transformational voice coaching program, Speak with Impact, then please do check out the links below. And also you can book a 60-minute private voice coaching session with me if you want to have a direct experience first of my coaching and see what it's all about and how I can really help you to find freedom in your voice and how you communicate. So you probably heard the expression communication is king. And it really is, because how we communicate impacts every area of our life, and we have patterns. Some areas of our life, it's easier for us to see that pattern than other areas. But there will be themes, there will be patterns in how you communicate. Are you someone that generally tends to pull away, run away, hide, pull your voice into your throat? Or are you someone that is quite confrontational and is very happy to express their opinions and be heard? And maybe you bulldoze over people a bit, maybe you're quite domineering, maybe even a bit aggressive when you speak to people. But we tend to favor one side or the other, depending on our conditioning, our programming, our upbringing, what we learned is an acceptable, a socially acceptable and adaptive way to communicate and to speak and to get our needs met. But as I said at the start, I think for all of us, including myself, at some stage in our life, we will struggle with one or all three of these key areas in our life. Whether it is relationships with family, with friends, with partners, whether it's money and financial abundance and success, or whether it's career progression. Maybe we're trying to create our own business. Maybe we are wanting to get that promotion. But in all cases, I would argue communication is essential and at its core for why you might feel stuck or limited or challenged in one or all three of those areas. So, first of all, let's talk about money, because I know that people often don't like talking about money, which in and of itself I think is very interesting for a society. But we all want more money because we need money to live. We need money to survive. We can't actually do anything without money unless we're going to go and live in a cave somewhere. But for most of us, we need money to live, to thrive, to do the things in the world that we want to do. So, what's interesting about money is money comes through people. So, if you think about this in a very sort of basic sense, if you want to create wealth in your life, then you are going to have to deal with people. So whether it's asking your boss for a pay rise, whether it's if you run your own business, speaking to clients or customers about your products and services and selling your products and services, or maybe you're trying to get a business loan or a bank loan or a personal loan, and you would probably have to deal with your bank and speak to someone. Now, you might not have to speak to them face to face. It might be a Zoom call, it might be a phone call, but I can guarantee somewhere along the line, you are going to have to deal with a human being if you want to bring more money into your experience. And so when we're dealing with money, we're really dealing with people. And when we're dealing with people, we're really dealing with ourselves. As I said at the start, because the world is simply a mirror. So whatever you perceive in people outside of you, quote unquote, is really reflecting something within you that you have denied, ignored, or tried to avoid within yourself. So therefore, your challenges around money, although they might seem to be out there, are really about your own internal conflicts, which show up in the people and situations around you. So let me give you an example of this. And again, just to remind you, I mean, this work is very deep, it's very personal. There is no cookie cutter approach. Everyone has a unique view of the world, has been brought up differently, different families. Even in the same family, you could still have a different perspective on life. So just take this with a pinch of salt, but just to give you an idea of how this might show up and how it's really your challenges with communication, i.e. dealing with yourself, that are really causing your struggles with money. So I remember my coach saying to me, it's never about the money. People will use the excuse of, oh, I can't afford this, I don't have the money, but it's never about the money. Money represents so many things to us on a conscious and an unconscious level. So very much tied up with money is our sense of worthiness. Am I good enough to have this job, this money, this new client, etc.? Also often wrapped up in money is responsibility, because often when we earn more money, there is more responsibility. And so you might have challenges around having more responsibility, more commitments. Increased visibility also for many people. When you earn more money, you're likely to become more visible in your business, in your career, in your job, whatever it is you're doing. You're likely to perhaps manage a team or run a company, or you're going to have more clients, more customers. You're going to have to deal with more people. There's more visibility, there's more responsibility. And then finally, and I think this is really important, we're really opening ourselves up often, particularly when we're breaking a pattern from our own family in our childhood. We are really having to deal with potentially criticism and judgment from those around us. And so all of this is driving our decisions around money and whether we allow it into our lives, and then how we communicate around what we want, what we say we want, what we desire. So for many of us, and I have done a lot of work myself around this, we have an internal conflict around money. We want it because we need it for life and for living and for doing things, and you can't really do anything in the world without money. But we also have a lot of judgments and fears around having money, because very much in our society, we're taught that people with money are greedy, are selfish, are power hungry, are egocentric. And so why would we want to have money if we see in the world people that are wealthy and we're like, well, I don't want to be like that. But that is very much the narrative, the cultural sort of social narrative that we're fed. Of course, there's many people that are very wealthy and aren't like that. But you can see where this internal conflict comes in. Then we go out into the world and we want that promotion. We want that pay rise. We want those higher paying clients. We want more customers, etc. We want to sell more products. And so this conflict then comes through in how we communicate, in how we share our voice. So we might go and speak to our boss about a raise, but consciously or unconsciously, we don't actually really feel worthy of that raise, or maybe we fear the responsibility that might come with that raise, or the visibility that might come with that raise. And so we go and ask for the raise, but our voice is expressing something different to perhaps what we consciously say we want. So our voice might express a lack of confidence. It might shut down. We might speak fast. We might mumble. We might not be able to articulate ourselves clearly, openly, and freely. And so we get then what we say that we want, but we actually fear, which is maybe we don't get the raise, or we only get a small raise when we see the person next to us doing the same job and they're earning a lot more. So there's all of this internal conflict that then gets fed into the voice, and we don't communicate freely, openly, and clearly. And we're not really able to communicate our value because on some level we don't really see our own value, or we don't really want the money. We do, but we don't. And so this is where people can go and ask for a raise, the voice shuts down, the voice gets pulled into the throat. We cannot communicate ourselves clearly and confidently. So does that resonate with you? Have you been in a situation, maybe you're going for a promotion, you're going for an interview, you're asking for a raise, and it's almost like a sort of a block gets put on your voice. You go to ask for it, and then the voice just shuts down. And this is what's happening. So we can blame the money in the world or no one's got any money, but really it's our own fear of receiving that money, of the responsibility, the visibility, our judgments, our beliefs around money that are stopping that. And that is then coming through in how we communicate and ultimately how it shows up in our voice. So maybe you also struggle in relationships and maybe you have a really deep fear of confrontation. So you tend to let things slide. You tend to push things under the rug. You don't express things in the moment when it's a problem. And then 1 month turns into 2 months, 6 months, a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and you've never actually addressed the issue. And what people often do is they'll go and have an affair if it's a romantic relationship, because they fear really addressing the issue that they probably know in their hearts they should have addressed a long time ago. Or maybe in a friendship, it might just be that kind of hidden resentment and that kind of passive aggressive behavior. I'm just not going to respond to them. I'm going to make them wait. I'm going to pretend I haven't got their email or pretend I haven't got their WhatsApp message. I'm just going to make them wait because I'm actually really annoyed, but I can't communicate that. And it erodes the trust. It erodes the connection in the relationship. Because actually, ultimately, what we really fear is expressing ourselves fully and potentially someone getting annoyed at us, maybe not agreeing with us, not liking us, perhaps ostracizing us from the group. And I think for many of us, particularly in romantic relationships, we fear the consequences of those conversations. What if I'm alone? What if this is the end of the relationship? What am I going to have to do? I have been in this situation myself. I was in a long-term relationship a few years ago. I knew the relationship was over probably 2 years before it was over, and I just didn't have the courage to actually express it. And so I ignored it for a long, long time, and I was getting more and more unhappy. I was feeling more and more dissatisfied and unfulfilled. And I knew it wasn't the right person for me, but I feared being alone and I feared all the consequences of that. And then my mum died, and then my life completely changed on so many levels. And it just woke me up to how fragile life is, how short life is. And I'm like, I'm not wasting another month, 6 months, a year in this interaction that I know isn't right. And I know this isn't the right person for me. So let's just free each other. He can go and meet the person that's right for him, and I can go meet the person that's right for me. So we all do this because the ego really fears rejection, fears being abandoned, fears being left, fears being isolated and ostracized. The misunderstanding we have is staying in these interactions is the solution because we can't see what's on the other side of it, versus actually having the courage to have that conversation and open ourselves up to perhaps the relationship improving, or even this isn't the right relationship, and opening ourselves up to meeting someone that is better aligned for us. So are you someone that struggles in relationships? And are you perhaps very critical or judgmental of your partner, or are they very critical, judgmental of you? Is there stonewalling in the relationship? Do you just not talk about certain things? Are there elephants in the room? The ego always sees this as the better way. Let's just push it under the carpet and pretend it's not happening. And you might think it's not actually impacting you, but it really does eat away at you. And I know for me, I spent so much time thinking about this and no, I can't leave this relationship because I really feared the consequences. But again, coming back to the original point, the struggle then in the relationship is the inability to communicate, to express our needs, our desires, our wants. Because for many of us as well, we've been taught that other people's needs are more important than our own. I think, particularly as women, particularly if we're a mother, we are really conditioned that everyone else's needs matter more than our own. So we put up with situations that aren't serving us anymore. So if you're having challenges in relationships, it's always a communication issue at some point, and a fear and a inability to really communicate freely, openly, and clearly what we really feel, need, and want. So the final one then is professional development, career success. And maybe you are going for a promotion or are looking for that next level up in your career. Maybe you're looking to manage a team or run a company or pitch to investors. But again, everything is still about other people. You are dealing with other people in all of those interactions, whether you're managing a team, pitching to investors, going for that promotion, you are going to have to deal with people. How you communicate then really, really matters. But again, it's not what we're kind of conscious of necessarily. It's the unconscious messages that are coming through how we communicate and how we use our voice. And so often in these kinds of scenarios, similar to money, it's our belief in our value. Am I really good enough to do this? We deal with a lot of imposter syndrome for many of us. Who am I to do this job? I don't have the right qualifications or the right skills or expertise. So all of these things are then feeding into how we communicate or don't communicate, how we show up in these situations, and ultimately how it comes through in our voice. So we might blame the economy for there's no good jobs or no one ever promotes me or I'm never given those opportunities at work. But again, we've got to look at the internal conflict within us. What is the downside for me having this promotion or getting this opportunity to lead a team or lead a company? There are always downsides that we don't want to face. And then that internal conflict comes through in how we communicate and how we speak. So we might find it very difficult to articulate our value, to articulate all the amazing things that we have achieved and why we deserve that promotion, why we deserve that next stage. It's easier to stay small and safe where we are than actually kind of face our shadow, face those challenges that we might have spent our life running away from. So start to think in your own life, what are the areas in my life that I most struggle with? And start to question, where am I bumping up against my own communication challenges? Where am I not expressing myself clearly, openly, and freely? Where am I avoiding myself? And you want to start to look at the internal conflict. So you want the promotion, you want more money, you want the relationship, or you want the relationship to improve. But what's the downside to that? What is it that you can avoid by staying in your current situation? This is all the shadow work that I go through with clients, but it's really starting to peel back the layers because any area that you struggle with, there will be communication struggles at its core. And if you don't do the inner work, the voice is just going to communicate that internal conflict, which is why you might get some success, but you might struggle in other areas, or you might take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So some questions to sort of start to think about. Am I someone that tends to run away and hide? Or am I someone that tends to be more on the front foot, more defensive, and more maybe explosive in my communication? Do you avoid confrontation? Or do you fear vulnerable conversations? Do you fear really being seen and heard? Because all of this is going to play into how you show up in terms of wanting more money, more success, more career progression, or even healthier relationships. So if you want some help with this, please do reach out. My coaching goes far beyond just getting you through a meeting or a presentation. This is looking at how your voice is really mirroring what's going on within. And so when you do this inner work, it frees you in such a transformational way, and it impacts every area of your life, from your relationships through to your money and success through to your career. So it's not just about, here's some quick tips to get you through a meeting. This is about looking more broadly at how you communicate, because the patterns are there. How you do one thing is how you do everything. It's just some areas of our life it's easier for us to see, but we can start to join the dots. Okay, I'm someone that tends to pull back, run away, and hide. You probably do that in every area of your life, but maybe in some areas it's more socially accepted than other areas. But the communication aspect is so important. But in order to communicate freely, openly, powerfully, and expressively, you have to know who you really are, and you have to be willing to take those steps forward and have those challenging conversations, have those difficult conversations, and leave your comfort zone in order to create something new. So if I can help you, please do reach out, book a 1 hour session if you're not quite sure what you're looking for. If you're interested in the private coaching though, please do book a 30-minute consult, and I'll see you on next week's video.